Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we are going to break down one of the most essential tools in Python, the for loop. Seriously, if you've ever wanted to process thousands of files or analyze a huge data set, or just get your computer to do the boring, repetitive stuff for you, then mastering the for loop is absolutely your first and most important step.
Just think about it for a second. How does your social media feed load hundreds of posts in a blink? Or a spreadsheet calculate 1,000 different rows instantly? Well, it's not magic, and it's definitely not someone doing it by hand. It's a fundamental trick of programming. And that secret is loops. They're the engine of automation in the programming world. So today, we're going to demystify Python's for loop. By the end of this, you'll know exactly how to make your code do the work for you. So let's get right into it. Okay, let's start at the beginning. The most fundamental thing a loop can do is just count and repeat things for us. And to do that, we're going to use a handy little function called range. So here's our first task. It seems really simple, right? Just print the numbers from 1 to 10. But this little exercise perfectly shows the core idea of a loop. You could almost call it the hello world of automation. And here's how we do it in just 2 lines of code. Let's break this down. That range 1 to 11 part, that generates a sequence of numbers. Then we're basically saying, hey Python, for each number you find in that sequence of numbers, I want you to print it out. The word number here is just a temporary name we give to whatever number we're on in that specific cycle of the loop. Now, let's talk about that range function, because this trips up a lot of people when they're starting out. When you say range 1, 11, what you're really telling Python is start at 1 and go up to, but do not include the number 11. So the very last number it will give us is 10. You got to remember that little detail. And this right here is the perfect example of why we even bother with loops. Sure, you could copy and paste my name 5 times, but what if you had to do it 5,000 times? The for loop on the right does it in 2 simple, powerful lines. That is the whole point of automation. Okay, so loops aren't just for counting with range. The real power, the real magic happens when you use them to work with actual collections of data, like lists. Let's see how this builds on what we already know. So imagine you have a shopping list. In Python, we'd store this as, well, a list. It's just a collection of items. Our goal is to have our program go through this list one by one and do something with each fruit. So what's actually happening behind the scenes here? This process is called iteration. The for loop just grabs the first item, apple, and puts it in a temporary variable. We'll call it fruit. It runs our code with apple. Then it automatically moves to the next item, mango, puts that into the fruit variable, and runs the code again. It just keeps doing this over and over until it hits the very last item in the list. And get this, it doesn't just work for lists. In Python, a string of text is also considered a sequence, just a sequence of characters. So a for loop can go through a string just as easily, 1 character at a time. So here it'll print P, then Y, then T, and so on, all the way through the word.
All right, now for the really fun part. We can combine loops with calculations and other cool operations to do some seriously powerful and creative stuff.
Let's tackle another challenge. This time, we want to add up all the numbers from 1 to 10. Now you can pull out a calculator, but we're going to make the computer do all the heavy lifting for us. The key here is a really common programming pattern. First, before the loop even starts, we create a variable, let's call it total sum, and we set it to 0. Then, inside the loop, for each number from 1 to 10, we just add that number to our running total. So that total sum variable just keeps growing with every single pass of the loop.
And once the loop has gone through all 10 numbers, our total sum variable is holding the final result, 55. A simple task, perfectly executed by our loop.
But loops aren't just for math. They can be really creative. You see, a neat trick in Python is that you can multiply a string. For example, if you type the star character times 3, you get 3 stars. So what do you think happens if we put that little trick inside a loop that counts from 1 to 5? You get this awesome pyramid. On the first pass, the number is 1, so it prints 1 star. On the second pass, the number is 2, so it prints 2 stars, then 3, then 4, and finally 5. It's such a simple but brilliant way to see the loop actually building something right before your eyes with each iteration.
Okay, time to combine what we've learned. We've got a list of numbers, and we want to do the exact same math operation on every single one of them. Our task, calculate the square of each number.
And the code for this is actually super intuitive. We loop for each number, which we'll call n, that's in our list of numbers. Inside the loop, we calculate its square. That double asterisk, by the way, is just Python's way of saying to the power of, so n double asterisk 2 is n squared. Then we just print the result. And this chart really visualizes what's going on. Our loop is acting like a little machine. It takes each number from our input list, 2, 3, and 4, and it produces a brand new transformed output value, 4, 9, and 16. This idea of transforming data is what so much of programming is all about.
All right, we have covered a lot of ground here, from simple counting to data calculations and even making patterns. So let's just do a quick recap of what makes the for loop so incredibly powerful.
At its core, the for loop is your go-to tool for basic repetition and counting. But where it really shines is when you iterate through data, like lists and strings, and then use it to perform calculations or create patterns. It's just so versatile.
So if there's one thing to take away from all this, it's this. Anytime you find yourself thinking, man, I have to do the same thing over and over again, the for loop should be the very first thing that pops into your head. It is the key to writing smart, efficient code.
And now it's your turn. Here's a little challenge for you. Can you use a for loop and the range function to print out the full multiplication table for the number 5, all the way from 1 to 10? Think about how you can combine everything we've covered to solve this. Give it a shot. Thanks for tuning in.